And we're live. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Look what we did. We don't have to be like, oh, is it working?
Well, we still have to ask you if it's working because we changed everything, right?
We did change everything.
Oh, well, we're going to have a bit of fun tonight. Jan and I are going to talk about music and how it impacts games and how it can impact storytelling as well. And then we will probably diverge, that's the right word, into sort of anarchy and chaos as per usual. So welcome and good evening.
Hello.
I'm Mike. This is
and
Jan.
he's Mike. Right, and I'm Jan. Hello, Ghost Sphere. Hello, Munster. I have an echo, Mikey.
You're so good. I needed everybody to hear you twice.
I agree.
I don't know how I'm going to solve that. I could just... Oh, you know what?
I don't.
No. I just have to turn...
It's quite the echo.
There we go. I'll do that instead. Then people can still hear you. There might be a lip sync issue. We'll sort that out another time.
Yeah. We'll do that in post. Hello, Mindstammer. Hello, Echo. It's very nice.
Echo!
So the plan is to talk about music and design and for Mikey to play around with some stuff and then just sort of poodle off in random directions and talk about what we want to talk about. So first off, Mikey, how's your week been? Are you feeling better? You had a really nasty...
I had an eye infection. I was like this for most of the week.
Oh, yeah, you told me.
Yes.
I remember you had a cough, a COVID, a thing. And then you got better and it got worse again.
Yeah, I've been through the wars. No, I'm good in myself. And yeah, the eye thing was annoying. So a couple of days ago, every time I blinked, it was like someone just going, ha, jab, jab. And obviously every time you blink 15 times a minute or whatever it is. It wasn't him. No, it wasn't him. Poke. Yeah, so it was a little bit annoying, but I battled through, you know. No, it was just had to wait for it to go.
I'm surprised you didn't do that with a gravelly, like, Garrett from the Witcher voice. I battled through.
Good evening, Roderick. How are you doing?
Hello, Roderick. So yeah, Mikey, would you like to take us into a little introduction and to the music thing we're talking about today, music-wise?
Yes, so a lot of this has come from... Well, we've had a lot more people going through the music course. We've got a couple of music courses on our site, and they're starting to show their work at the moment, which has been absolutely awesome. Mm-hmm. And it's... you know when you get into something a bit more. So I've always been into my music, and I've been doing a lot of the action RPG music at the moment and playing around with different things. And suddenly you start hearing more of the games you're playing. You start hearing the soundtracks, and you realize that sometimes there's a big mismatch between what you're playing and the style of music. Not a mismatch as in it doesn't go together. It goes together incredibly well. But say you're playing an action RPG or an RPG in general, and you're in the town and you expect like some tavern music or something along those lines, sort of like a bit like stereotyping the music. You don't have that in a couple of games. This is like cyberpunk in the middle of a medieval action thing. And it's just like, but it works. And that's the thing. You can have different styles of music, and they can really carry the story forward. And a great one is like during a film. You know when the sad bit's coming, and when someone's about to die because the big arcing strings come out, and you're like, oh.
So this is actually, I mean, this technique we know quite well, but it's an old theatrical technique. It originally, I guess the first time I know about it would be ancient Greek theatre, but the modern version would be from 19th century melodrama, literally melodrama, melody and drama.
So when Jan told me this the other day, I was like, I've learnt something. Yeah. I'll just nod and pretend I know.
So when we say the word melodrama, and I'm going to do my theatre teacher geekery at the moment, when we hear the word melodrama, we tend to think about overacting or being emo or whatever.
Being melodramatic, right?
Right. But melodrama was a very specific, very stylized form of theatre. And the closest thing I can think of to it would be the 1990s action movie or a big budget horror movie. Melodrama is highly stylized. It's very, very big, good versus evil, lots of visual spectacle. I mean, in Drury Lane, they would have a whole train, literal train crashing on stage. Like they would build it and have the train crashing on stage. The curtain would come down. The stagehands behind the curtain would sweep across the stage in under 10 seconds. The curtain would come up, and you're inside the living room, and it's like magic. Or in one, there was a fashion for nautical melodramas for a brief period, and at Drury Lane Theatre, they hid water jets between the seats and just flooded the stage. But in order to really get the emotions going, they hired a conductor who would also write music. And all the way through, they would play music under the action to manipulate how you feel.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
it
something we
works.
still do now.
Yeah.
I remember one episode of The A-Team years and years ago where they didn't put music over a battle scene, and the whole thing just did not feel cool and I'm a kid anymore. It felt like men shooting at each other. I didn't like it. So the right music and the right scene, as we know, can do a lot. But we have a problem with games. We don't know what the player's going to do when. You can't like guide them that well.
And you can have music that changes. So I remember one of the first games I ever played that did the whole music changing thing was Total Annihilation. So Total Annihilation came with a separate music CD. It was like an album, so to speak. So a CD for the younger members is like an MP3, but doesn't hold much. So when you'd put in this game music CD along with the thing that you Total Annihilation, the RTS that you're playing, and then if you start it would have this lovely sweeping melody, and because you're in a green land and you're building up your resources, and then suddenly an enemy comes and that music fades out. So it was just a crossfade, nothing dramatic, and it would be like and you'd be in battle, and then the battle would fade and the music would sort of like go mellow again. Very, very simple, but it worked ever so well. And that was with a full orchestra. I mean, I love it when games actually use a full orchestra. I know it's not suitable for every game, but it really does add to it because it's human players.
So what you can really notice this effect when you subvert it, like when you play your own music over a game. I'll give you an example. Mikey and myself and Jelly and our friend Durgan have been playing Barotrauma. We did it on stream a couple of weeks
That
back.
was also fun. Yeah,
we were playing it recently. And the menu for Barotrauma has this really eerie horror movie vibe to it.
Yes, definitely.
But if you were to play Yakety Sax, also known as the Benny Hill theme, over it, the game would feel very different.
I remember, I'm not sure where I saw this. It might have been way back at school when we were doing music. Our teacher was showing us, I think, how you can have like a playground scene with swings moving backwards and forwards just in the wind. And you could play child music over it, and that's one scene. You play sort of horror music over it, it's a completely different feeling. So you can manipulate how someone's feeling just by playing different styles of music.
And it is manipulation. And we use that word usually in a very negative context, and it can be a negative context. But we're not talking about gaslighting people. We're talking about drawing the most emotional content out of the piece. And
we're also making sure the story we're telling is the story that's being received. So
right, it's another tool in the storytelling box. It's another paintbrush, right? So in a computer game, you've got the code, you've got the graphics, you've got the design, and you've got the sound effects, and you've got the music. And you can do a lot with music. It can be incredibly subtle, or it can be really overpowering.
And
sometimes it's just like
no right or wrong.
I never asked for this. Like every time you hear that da 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 da, you see the Deus Ex logo in your head. And it's great.
And the intro scene with the orb floating, the earth floating, as the two nasty people are talking. Or are they nasty? Are they actually the good and you're the bad person? So yeah, so there are all sorts of ways, and drawing it back down to making your own game at the moment and how you could go ahead and approach. One of the things that we've often done in the past is we've just gone and grabbed something from CC0 music. What's the game art music or something like that?
I use Open Game Art.
Open Game Art, that's the one. Yeah,
there's a couple of other sites, but Open Game Art's the one I use a lot.
Yes.
And sometimes you get some really great stuff on there. Sometimes you get some okay stuff. Someone's just put it in CC0 because it's not good enough for me to use, but maybe you'll enjoy it, which is great. The problem is the really good stuff tends to show up in lots of places because
Yes,
It's good
you,
music, and you're going to use it.
and it's difficult then because you can't build an identity.
Right.
Because it's very much the same. You know, this is going to be a potential issue if you use our dungeon assets and someone else uses dungeon assets. You end up with the same
Sure.
assets in the same place. Now, when
Or
it
when you
comes,
notice that all of your favorite YouTubers use the same music packs.
well, Epidemic Sounds, I've used it as well, and I'm like, oh, I've heard this one before,
Infotech.
and this
No,
one,
not
and this one.
Incompetech.
Yeah,
They come from the cloud stuff, which is great, but you hear it everywhere.
and the stock video as well. There's stock video sites now where you see that
Mhm.
someone's narrating over and they use it as B-roll footage, and it ends up samey.
But
So that's
Mikey,
something
how
you have.
could we possibly not have the same music as everyone else in our game?
AI? Ah, curveball.
How could we have not the same music in our game and it be good?
Well trained AI. No. So it's a skill, right? And I jest with just saying AI because AI is fast approaching with things like music, and for certain genres, it's worked incredibly well. You can get. I saw recently it was Linus from Linus Tech Tips actually singing old country songs, old Johnny Cash songs, and it sounded pretty convincing. Now, obviously, that's just a vocal over the top, but you know this sort of stuff is coming on. So AI is definitely going to be something in the toolkit to use. But one thing that I've noticed, whether it's generating text or art, or whether it's generating music in the future, I've noticed that when it's an angry genie again. You ask for something and it's not quite what you want, so you try and ask again. You spend a lot of time manipulating your text. You become a prompt engineer, as it were, in order to try and get the thing you want out of it. By
Right.
which point you could have potentially created it
I mean,
yourself.
I find generative AI can be very useful. My
Yeah,
problem is when we're talking about creating things like games or novels or movies or whatever it is, if I'm getting the generative AI to do the grunt work, in what sense can I say I've created this? Like, this isn't mine. It's like when I see on the Goddo Facebook group people saying, hey guys, how can I do this? And people just say, type it into OpenAI. Like, yes, but you haven't learned anything and you haven't done it.
so
That's no
I've
different from saying, get your neighbor to write the game for you.
yes. So there is a crossover there. I've used it very efficiently as a tool.
I used it for the thumbnail for this.
Yeah.
It's not what I typed in, but I used it. I typed in tiny piano on top of a computer monitor because I wanted to make the joke, but I can't because that's not what they gave me.
No. So it's a useful tool when you employ it, but I don't think it hasn't got anything creative about it. It's
not you
using
doing it.
No, not
That's
at
my
all.
problem. It's let's imagine we can get AI to the state where it is general intelligence. It is human or better, and it understands what you mean, and it just makes
Yeah.
the stuff you want. Great. But that's like me saying, Mikey, can you write a game for me? And then saying, hey guys, I wrote a game. Like, no, you didn't.
Isn't
You
that
asked
what
Mikey to do it.
isn't that what the big publishers could do? Anyway, we're getting
Anyway,
a bit off topic.
that's my rant. So if we don't want to use generative AI,
So
can we do?
you could write your own music, and of course, the beginning stuff that you do won't be blockbuster level stuff, but
Mhm.
you don't have to go very far to get a reasonable sound. You can employ some very specific rules. We'll talk about some of these tonight. I'm not going to show everything like before, but I will do this. Whoop. So I will be showing the keyboard. So you won't see that, Jan, until it pops up on the stream. I put a little keyboard there. Whoop.
For context, this is what he did. I could do this. Whoop.
Yeah.
There it
But
is.
there it is.
That's right. Whoop. There it is. That's how 90s I am.
So I'll grab the keyboard, but I'm not going to share my screen or anything. I've not set. I've got a big screen, and trying to squeeze it on here ain't going to work very well. So
Right.
we'll talk about some basic music concepts. Of course, if you want to go check out the courses, etc., you can do. And there we get time to spend and focused on, focused on the theory, and then focused on just playing and generating different clips. So I'm just going to load up. If I can use my eyes. There we go. It's a difficult thing trying to load things up. So now I want to know, first of all, whether you guys can hear, hopefully you can, when I play something.
I can.
That's good, because you should hear it live. That's the way I've got it set up, which is
Right.
also why you're doubled, because I didn't put you on a different track. You are one with the music. But hopefully everybody else just heard that little piano riff.
I'm waiting for the stream to catch up with us.
Yeah, me too. So I don't want to just blast forward.
Yes, they can. They
Excellent.
can hear it better than I can.
They should be able to. I don't know why yours is not coming through loud, but that's
Fine.
probably a good thing, because then you and I can actually have a conversation over the music. So
For
perfect.
those of you who are curious, that was the length of time between us saying something and it appearing on stream. So it's almost a minute.
Yes, it can take a while. I hear something.
Wasn't it the Lassie music?
Lassie? I don't know. I just
Or the Incredible Hulk? When they're like walking off into the rain in the distance. Dum, dum, bum, 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 bum.
So what you could also do is hire Jan to do an acapella.
Yes,
We
you
will
could.
do an acapella track one day. We've joked about it for a couple of years now, but we will do it one day. So I want to keep things nice and simple today. So I'm going to make the keyboard appear with the whoop. There we go. That's the sound
Whoop,
effect.
there
for
we
that.
go.
Whoop, there we go. Yeah, the keyboard's just appeared at the bottom. You don't see that yet. They see that. You don't.
No, carry on.
Look live. And I have flipped the keyboard for those wondering, so that the low notes are actually on the left-hand side. I was watching the stream back that I did the other day, and I don't think I flipped the keyboard, and I was like, why are all the low notes on the right? It really confused me watching.
Well,
So
wouldn't you have to rotate the keyboard for that to make sense?
no, I flipped it horizontally.
Right, the black notes need to be further away for that to work.
The black notes? No, just the left and right-hand side of the keyboard. It's fine.
I can see fingers.
You do. So, a classic way of composing is to follow a structure. So if you've not done anything before, whether it's writing, whether it's artwork, whether it's music, it's better to find some sort of framework to hang your ideas on. And of course, copy. Steal like an artist, as they say. Especially when you're learning something new. It doesn't matter if you've copied someone else. It really doesn't, because a lot of music, a lot of art is actually iterative. You build upon ideas you've heard before. Not everything has been played, but everything that makes sense to our Western ears has probably been written by now. And when you start playing something like, I mean, you know straight away that that's a little bit of tavern music. But you could keep repeating that over and over again, and then vary it slightly. There we go. Yes, it was very close to Scarborough Fair. But that's the point, right? I've played something and you've gone, oh, that's Scarborough. No, it's not quite Scarborough Fair, but it's very similar to, because it follows that kind of rule set. And I think one of the things that I think it could apply to artists, game developers, and musicians alike is that you need to kind of get out of your head with trying to be original, because originality is not going to get you very far initially, especially when you're just starting out.
It's one of those words like fun, isn't it? Where
Yes.
It's actually not that helpful when you're making stuff. Like at the very beginning, if your stuff sounds like something else, that's not the end of the world, unless you went out of your way to copy it, in which case, don't do that. But
well, if you're trying to make a medieval, that sort of style of thing, but you ended up it sounding more like a rock band playing, then you've just emulated something else, right? In order to copy something, you have got to sound like the genre that you want to be in. And so that's where a lot of court cases have happened recently. With Uptown Funk
you,
was
Rosserick.
a greater one.
Make fun original tune. Just type that into OpenAI and see what happens. We're done.
You can create original music, but it's not going to make sense to our ears.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is context, which is to do with instrumentation and timing and key and all the other things. Like, unless you're going out of your way to actually copy something, it's okay, especially at first, if it sounds like something else.
I'm just giving you a bit of background music.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Lots of fun.
Very melodrama.
No. There we go. So And I think it was very interesting. I think I was watching a video by Adam Neely. If you want to check out more
Mhm.
about music, he really does deep dives into stuff. Some of it is not for me. He's talking about like
A lot of it's very
fusion
academic.
jazz. Yes,
Yeah.
it can go very, very deep. So it can be very inaccessible unless you've got a little bit of music knowledge to hang onto his thread with. But one of the things that he was talking about in a very recent episode was, and I didn't realize this, something like a major chord, we in the Western world see as kind of happy, right?
Mm.
But if you play that to other cultures around the world or play a minor thing, they might see a minor tune as something that is happy rather than sad because they don't have that context. So a lot of what is employed in it is important to say Western musical culture, is it's learnt. You learn that something going is sad, that
Or at
sort of thing.
least thoughtful.
Or thoughtful or provocative. You could go down all sorts of routes with
Right,
your
like it's
music.
not like
There are tropes. There are ideas that are repeated time and time again in Hollywood, and they kind of mean something now.
so a good example is if we were to imagine an open door and Mikey's playing that, right, in our video game. No, just the door, it's already open. We're just looking at it in our game, nothing's happening. And
Yes.
that, like, we might think it's mournful or something meaningful. But if he starts playing wah wah guitar porn music, that door is now something very different.
I've heard a lot of Baldur's Gate involves a bit of that now.
Only if you make the decision to.
Yes. Hold on, I'm just shifting you around so I can access the
Yeah, I
music
mean,
software.
white in, I forget if it's China, Japan, or both, being associated with death is an interesting point.
Yes.
It's the kind of cultural mistake you can make very easily. And to be honest, you don't even have to go that far abroad. Like there are cultural differences between England and France that will catch you out if you're not careful.
So it's interesting because if you're trying to make a certain effect, so if I play something along the lines of those are the sort of scales that are often attributed like with the Middle East, with
Right.
desert theme, and you start getting that sort of idea in your head. You do run the risk, not necessarily with that, but you do run the risk of perhaps offending someone if you just hear a particular musical idea and then use it. I mean, I wouldn't go around being cautious of possibly offending anybody in the world, but it's important that certain things mean things to other cultures as well. So you can't just
Well, I would
uplift them
also
and
say
take them.
if you're trying to make Middle Eastern desert music, the first thing you should do is speak to people who understand their culture and get to know something about it. Like it's one of those things where if you don't know much about it, you know, just enough to know some of the keynotes, it's really easy to just come across as pastiching it.
Yes.
In the same way that sometimes you'll watch anime and everyone in Europe wears a beret and a kilt. I'm like, that's not how that works.
I really like playing around with ideas, and one of the things I haven't done yet, and let me know if you want to have a very long format but highly repetitive stream. One of the things I often do when I'm playing around with musical ideas is I could be on that musical idea for half an hour, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just cycling round and round.
Before you do that,
I'm
I'd
not
like
going
to
to
give
do
a
that
quick
right now.
shout out. If you're interested in diving into exactly how chords can work and all the different types of scales, there is one music channel that I recommend, IXI Music, IXI Music. And this is someone who has an incredible wealth of music theory, and she analyzes principally 90s metal songs, a lot of Nine Inch Nails, a lot of Radiohead, and just really goes deep down into what the chord structure is doing here and how it makes you feel and why it's doing that. And it's quite incredible. But if you're not interested in that depth of music theory, maybe don't do that. Mensa says, sorry, it's really strange to see the keyboard inverted. It is. It's very strange.
Well, I can flip it if that.
I think it would help. I also like that it looks like it's coming from both of us. We're both playing it.
Hang on a minute. So put your hand down, but only halfway off. There we go.
I
There
got
we go.
T-Rex hands.
Hold on a second. There's a button here to flip it round. That's transform. There we go. Oh, so I can make it the other way round. I don't know if that's more comforting or comfortable. There we go. Beep.
Ooh.
Very eerie. So one of the things that I've kind of sort of started to get towards is when music becomes more sound design, right? So if you're wanting to enter a cave, you might want more sort of a lot of reverb, perhaps. So you've got you're causing a sense of open space when you're doing the music.
I think it's an interesting point, but I would also say that a cave might be that, but it might be all kinds of other things.
Yeah, right.
It's much like in set design or in game design. The sense of place is also, what does this place feel like?
Yes.
Is this a spooky, mysterious cave full of crystals? Is it full of lava and dragons?
Yes.
Is it just dark and moldy?
All of the above.
Right.
It's a dark and moldy crystal dungeon. Dragon.
Full of lava and dragons.
Yes.
Dark lava. Dark lava is my emo name.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I'm too old to be emo. Cybergoth.
But yeah, there's lots of different approaches that you can take, and one of the things that we discovered when looking at when we were doing Mag Racer, we were looking at some of the sound design that was used for Wipeout, and they actually used an instrument called Massive, which is part of the native instrument suite. But it's a generative synth, so you just tweak knobs and you can get sounds coming from it. It's very interesting to see how they were making those sounds from an instrument and then layering them on top. And obviously, music can very easily creep into sound design when you're actually speccing out your level and how you want someone to feel when they walk into a particular room. If you want someone to be cautious, then you can play music to make them feel, oh, boss is coming up. You know.
I mean, one of the things I used to like to do way back in the day was to take MIDI files of well-known pieces of music or of game themes, and then change the instrumentation.
Instrumentation can change things.
The Doom soundtrack on MIDI sounded very different if you switched the guitar for an accordion.
Yes, yeah, it would. Well, that's something that again we talk about in the course. The choice of instrumentation can be a benefit and can also be a drawback. Obviously, you can change your instrumentation, and if you've got something that's a piano, it's going to sound different to strings.
I was going to say, when you played that chromatic scale, that Middle Eastern scale on piano, if you were to change that for like a sitar or a massive or whatever else, it's going to have a huge. It's going to really affect what it sounds like. I'm waiting for him to try it. Now play that same thing. Trumpet. Now try it with a trumpet. You must have an inch trumpet.
Inch trumpet? I'll do a muted trumpet. Why not?
It just sounds like a royal fanfare got lost. Here comes the king. Oh, we're in the desert.
I hope the king's fallen over. So yeah, lots of fun can be had with music as well. But this can drive ideas, right? The other thing with instrumentation, and if you want to get into music, one of the downsides that I've personally experienced is you go and get a music pack and you open it up and it's got 5,000 instruments or sounds or whatever, and you just end up spending the afternoon going through 500 of those sounds and not actually making any music. So one of the things that can be incredibly creative is to reduce what you're doing. You pick like 5 sounds and that's it. That's your band.
I mean, this is something we talk about in the Creativity for Coders course, is limiting your options when you're trying to create something from scratch is a great piece of scaffolding. It stops you from just getting lost in choice paralysis.
One of the things that can happen with music is you can end up completely making your stage, your audio stage, muddy. You just put too much in there, and you're like, oh, this, and it'll sound amazing as you're doing it because you're in that creative flow and you know what's going on. But if you come back to it later or have someone with you that's listening to the music, then they could say, well, I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
I mean, it can work, but making that kind of rich, heavily textured sound, usually you need to know what you're doing. I mean, Nine Inch Nails, for example, tends to do that very well.
Yeah.
But it can also go very wrong. Sorry, mate, I'm clearly in a Nine Inch Nails mood.
Bit different to what we're going to be doing at any point this evening.
I mean, you say that like they have 2 whole albums of minimalist classical music. Like they've gone through some phases. They've had some jazz fusion out there. Like they've had some drum and bass.
Well, that shows that they've experimented. They've tried things to see how they get on with it. So it's that I think there are no mistakes. And of course, when you're playing with music, there is no right or wrong with these things either.
Easy, Bob Ross. Sometimes things are wrong. Jazz is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a great escape, and obviously, it's not for everyone. We get that when it comes to your skill set. You might just want to hire someone to do something, or get some off-the-shelf bits of music.
Even then, though, it helps to have the same kind of language to talk to them. So yes. When they say, "What is it you want?" you don't say, "Make original fun tune."
Yes. So one of the things, if you do going to speak English good to people, then start again. So if you're talking to someone, whether it's to get art assets, whether it's to get music assets, is get them involved and make sure they've got a detailed spec sheet. One of the things that Jan and I came across, Jan was like, make some dungeon music, and I'm like, dun dun dun. And he went, bit light-hearted, like we've got skeletons. Like, that's a bit strong.
We haven't been sentenced to the tower.
Yeah, we've not got any gore in this game. This is it's a more light-hearted thing. Okay, so we changed things around and we got a couple of xylophones, marimbas to do the more corny. I don't know.
Kazoo, you've got to have a kazoo.
Oh, I'm going to order a kazoo. I've just ordered some mandolin strings, but that's a story for another day.
I have a kazoo story at some point,
But yeah, getting that spec down and getting them involved, showing them the game so they can understand. If you give them a spec sheet, they could follow that spec sheet exactly, but not actually produce the music that you wanted or the art assets that you wanted. It's really important that you can bring these things together. So if you've already got the art assets and you're now looking for sound design and everything else, and music, etc., then having those available so the composer can see what the style of the game is can dramatically change the output that you're going to get. Xylophone does equal skeletons.
I'm helping.
Correct.
There's his cat.
That was perfect timing. I'm helping. Desert skeletons. Okay, we have.
I mean, try it. You've done the chromatic scale. Let's try it with the. Now try it with the marimba.
I actually already have a marimba loaded. Let's go.
See, desert skeleton.
So, for those who want to dabble in this stuff a little further, a lot of the sounds that I've been playing this evening come from Spitfire Audio and the BBC Orchestra, which is a totally free thing. It's linked over on our Discord at the moment, and it's phenomenal. And they just updated it to have a piano, so you can. It's a very bright sounding piano.
It is very electric.
But they have. Some lovely brass instruments, and the strings are gorgeous. I love the cellos. And one of the ones that I really like is the French horn. I've always loved the sound of a French horn. Just to go. Just that.
Yep, no, I dig it.
So, yeah. It's only got, well, it has got the entire orchestra, and it has got some variations on the instruments as well. So, for instance, a lot of the instruments have their long form, but also a short form as well, which can dramatically change how the piece is sounding. And one of the things that I've been doing is I've been using both the long form, so you have one track with the long form instrument and then another track with the short, and then when you want the sound to be short, you can just switch to that and play those notes.
Yep.
And that can change a piece completely, especially if you're trying to add tension. Of course, you could be like having those short, sharp things.
Yep.
You know, it works, and that actually fits the musical pattern we were playing earlier with the.
So a really good example of this, and we've already mentioned it before, is the brand new Baldur's Gate, which when you go into character creation, it cycles through a few different pieces of music, one of which is sung. This song Down by the River. And as you're playing the game, you realize that almost all the music you hear is reorchestrated and rearranged versions of that tune, redone in context.
Yes.
Like heavy battle version, dark, scary cave in the Underdark version, Lost in a Dream version, romantic version. It's a really smart piece of music design.
That's a great way of bringing loads of disparate pieces of music together, is to have one or two overarching themes that are repeated throughout. One of the ways you could do that is to have the same orchestration, the same instrumentation. You can have that repeated, and that's one way of bringing everything together.
Trick that you often see in opera, melodrama, and in film is the idea that different characters have their own theme. I mean, you see this a lot in Star Wars movies, where there's a Leia theme, there's a Luke theme, there's a Darth Vader theme.
Yes,
and you'll hear it like throughout. I forgot the name of the guy who did those videos.
John Lucas.
No. He is
John Lucas.
Somebody who has UI design and musicology experience, and he goes into depth into music software, and he also talks about reification in Star Wars, and talks about how the new batch of Star Wars movies breaks the convention and doesn't really work.
So we've got Stan there making a reference to Labs. Labs is absolutely brilliant. I love it. I'm just gonna pick something here. This is a vocal thing.
It's from the bunny.
Gaelic Voices. And I believe they've got some lovely runs somewhere in here.
Excuse me.
This
what?
Runs, so that's not one of them. But yeah, Labs is brilliant. It's like their test ground for stuff. So it has loads of really unique sounds. You know, you wouldn't necessarily use them all the time. Here we go. This is one that's probably not going to be.
Just say really unique.
That one's called Bitten Bumblebee.
I was going to say, is this a fly playing the trumpet?
Pretty much. Yeah, really unique.
Nope.
Nope. What else?
Okay, so I'm usually pretty easygoing about language. There are certain phrases
like really unique,
slightly unique, very unique. No, unique isn't absolute. It's either unique or it isn't. You can't have one unique.
This is the ultimate live stream.
Ultimate doesn't bother me as much, but that's not what ultimate means. Ultimate just means the last.
We will be back. Don't worry, it's not the ultimate live stream. Oh, now I feel like Bill.
Fix meaning repair. Decimate. That's one that annoys me. Mikey, what does decimate mean?
Isn't it chop into 10?
To reduce by a tenth.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean devastate, which is what people mean. When I was doing my adjunct professoring in the States, I would see some incredible, like, misheard phrases. My very favorite was someone wrote in a final paper, "for all intents and purposes." Just like, what do you picture when you write that? The other one was, "let's examine this from the get-go."
From the get-go?
Right.
So I'm going to
And
nip
it's
that
a
in the
doggy dog
butt.
world.
Is a bud? Is it nip it in the bud? Specific
It's
and Pacific.
it's a doggy dog world, like Snoop.
Doggy
You see that one a lot,
dog.
and it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, so the original phrase doesn't make much sense either, but
Thanks, Roderick. Decimate is an Aussie friend of decimals.
yes.
Yeah. I do try and learn some ones to wind you up. I won't deny that sometimes happens.
I don't know what you mean. I find your humor is partially unique.
Partially unique.
Is it air raid?
Granular whales song.
Sounds more like.
So, warning,
void.
if you go and get yourself Spitfires Audio's Labs, you're going to run into the problem I mentioned earlier about having lots of fun things
Right.
to play with and not progressing anywhere forward. Although, I think there is merit as well to putting in the time to having a look at the various instrumentation and sounds that you can use. Because one thing that you can do is make a relatively boring piece. It's very quantized, so it's on the beat, and then find these other extras that you can dot around. It's very much like you're building a level. You obviously want the main corridors and walls and everything in place, and you get an empty room, and then you can start
kind of
populating
need
it.
organizational spreadsheet or software to do that for you. It's like when you buy a huge sound effect pack and you have 8,000 sound effects, and there's just no way of finding what you want unless you just look it up by keyword.
This one's called Piano Pad.
Right.
Oh, clickety click click. Computers isn't like that in streaming.
No, something very wrong going on with the bit there.
But yes, it's an absolutely amazing set, and obviously it's a gateway drug to the rest of their collection of quite frankly amazing instruments. It's a set of instruments that you can use freely, and I think they're a marvelous set to have. I recently got a load of different piano sounds, but that's on my other computer at the moment. I've not installed them on here, so I can't play them.
So take a boring song, says Ghostsphere,
Yep.
and add some Eric Idle audio quotes over it. I mean, that sounds amazing. I think you might run into some copyright issues if you try and use it, but it will make the song better.
No, if you're making a statement, it's
One thing that's always fun
fair use.
is making a piece of music with audio. Bill Bailey does this really well when he does Downton Abbey, but it's the reggae remix.
Yeah. So
and it's amazing.
I mean, it's not something for a beginner because you're still learning around, but actually taking a piece of music that's in one genre and making it another is a great way of learning the different
I mean, honestly,
styles.
taking a found sound and using it in place of an instrument has been the start of a lot of genres. It's how industrial music got started, where instead of using drums, they went out and got samples of metal pipes being hit and just used those instead.
Yeah.
Which is why 80s and early 90s industrial has that very sort of sound to it.
Sorry, I am recording. I'm going to use that. That was a nice sample.
Allen key, metal coffee pot.
I apologize. Hello, Todd.
Hello,
Hi.
Todd. Did you know that Todd makes games?
Apparently so.
So, could you give us a demonstration? Could you take a simple little motif and then like create a few different variations on it?
Yeah. So let's just clear everything down. I'm going to keep it really, really simple if I can. You tell a little story while I set up a little bit of instrumentation because it's going to take
Any
me.
particular story? Or?
Tell us about Baldur's Gate at the moment because I'm really interested in Baldur's Gate. I've watched a couple of reviews, and
okay, so Baldur's Gate.
I like
played
the idea
original,
of it,
and I played Baldur's Gate 2 way back when. And it's been a long time between Baldur's Gate games, and Larian Games make some really good RPGs. I mean, we've played Divinity Original Sin 2.
I really enjoyed that.
And it was a lot of fun. So Baldur's Gate 3 takes the original Baldur's Gate setting, which is city in Forgotten Realms and Dungeons and Dragons by Wizard of the Coasts, um, and uses the 5th edition rule set, and it's incredible. I mean, the character creation is incredible. Like, I don't normally like to just gush about a video game, but this is dangerously
enough.
good. Like, this will eat your free time. You could play it multiplayer. You could play drop-in multiplayer. Um, there's all kinds of different ways of doing stories that you just don't think of. They've got some pre-made origin stories that have their own storyline, or you can just make your own. But Mikey, if you want to make an emo gnome bard who's evil and goes around serial killing everybody while playing music, you can.
Awesome. I like the idea. It's been ages since I've been able to play Dungeons and Dragons in person, and everybody's saying how very like Dungeons and Dragons this is, even down to
Dungeons
the rolls
Dragons
and
is
the
not
checks.
my favorite tabletop RPG rule set. It's a really good rule set. I've played it a lot, especially when I was living in New York. It's a lot of fun, but I tend to prefer games that aren't so combat focused. That said, Baldur's Gate nails it. They've made a couple of changes to how the rules are interpreted because they need to. Things like the jump and throw rules are so much more fun. When I first realized quite how powerful throw was when you're a tiefling barbarian who's raging and you're on the edge of a cliff next to a giant skeleton automaton and you just throw him into the lava. Or throw one one goblin into another goblin, and they both land in a barrel that explodes. Like, it's great. But the rules are pretty close to what the rule set are. And to be honest, the kind of tabletop role-playing games I enjoy are so story-based and collaborative, like things like Blades in the Dark. I don't really see how you could keep that and make it a video game.
That's very difficult, because obviously when you're playing Blades in the Dark, I love the game that we played. We can bounce off of one another's and we generate the story as you're going.
Right? The DM in Blades in the Dark isn't supposed to prepare in advance, and it's a huge game of yes and. So you ask the players what their character does and who they talk to and what their relationship is, and you build off that. That's very hard for computers to do these days. But yeah, Baldur's Gate is compelling.
I think I'm ready. I've only got a few small set of instruments. I'm going to do something very simple, mainly because of time requirements more than anything else. I think I can share my screen. It won't share absolutely everything. I'm using FL Studio at the moment for those who are interested. Not everything is on the screen, and I'm not going to faff around trying to get it to fit properly. It's just so you can see roughly what I'm doing, so I'm not just talking and you can see our faces. So there's some extra stuff going here. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a rhythm track. Now, I've actually got a keyboard here as well, and one of the great things certainly about FL Studio, and a few other ones have it, is you can actually hit your keyboard, and so you don't need a fancy thing like this in front. Last time I did a music stream, I actually moved my main keyboard out of the way, played this for a bit just to demonstrate the fact that you don't need a fancy thing. It's a bit like
use the piano roll.
And this is another way of doing it. I'm just going to write the notes in, something like that, and then I can start playing a pattern back. Now I'm going to turn this down so it's not too loud. If you guys think it's a bit on the quiet side, then just let me know and I'll turn it back up a little. Because it's going to be repetitive, so a warning there, because we're going to loop around and make a beat essentially to begin with. There will be a little bit of, or a lot of, repetitiveness because we're going to repeat ourselves lots. Yeah, I just defined repetitive. Go me. So I just want something here.
I think that was a tautology, but I repeat myself.
Maybe something like that. I don't know. So one of the things that you can do with music is add variation. So at the moment, all of these notes are the same velocity or the same volume. Now, some patches, some sounds will change how they sound depending on how hard you hit them, like a real drum does. This doesn't do that. It'll just be quieter or louder. So the first beat, I want to be louder than the others. And you can hopefully hear that there. And then I'm just going to randomly put some notes in. Oh, I've not even got snapping turned on, so I'm going to...
You need snapping. You need to quantize it.
Yeah. Will you snap, please? There we go. Right, I'm going to grab what's here already, and there's an option to quantize. So when you play something or put notes in randomly like this, they're not going to be on the beats. Now, that can be desirable. Sometimes you want to have something initially really on the beat, and then to make it not so on the beat so that it sounds more human. That's something that happens quite a lot. You end up having everything to a rigid beat, and then coming back later and go, no, I want it to be more human. Actually, that's not too bad here, but I'm going to add a couple of notes here in a row, but I'm going to make them quieter. There's one coming in too late here that I can hear. Bear with me.
It's been bugging me.
That one. Because these two offset one another, and it causes this one to sound out of time even though it's not. Right, I'm not going to spend too much more on that, but you can get the idea here that I've randomly put these notes in. I haven't thought about it, as you saw. And then I've quantized it and adjusted it, and yeah, that sounds a great start. So let's go to a different instrument. I've got... we can ignore these three, they're kind of the standard ones there. I've got a flute type sound, I've got a plucked, and I've got two plucked. We can work with that. This one, as you can hear, there has a little bit of delay built in. I'm not going to worry too much about that, but it is worth bearing in mind if you've got an instrument that already has things like delay and reverb on it, it can make the mix muddy, because if you then add another instrument that's got more delay and another instrument, they can end up crowding one another. So I'm just playing around over the top at the moment. I am going to record at this point. I don't know. Everything. There's everything. So with most DAWs, digital audio workstations, you can set a metronome. So there'll be an extra sound you'll hear in a moment, which is just keeping the beat. I don't really need that because I've got a drum pattern here, but I'm going to have it on anyway. And this 3, 2, 1 is a countdown. So when I press play, I don't have to catch up with myself. And I think this one here is loop recording, which, yes, and overdub. So loop recording means when it gets to the end of this section that we've already recorded, it's going to come back again and just start again. If I don't turn on overdub, when it loops back, anything I play will overwrite what was there before, which can be desirable if you're playing around with ideas. But if you want to layer things on top of one another using the same instrument, then you'll want something like that turned on. Each DAW handles them slightly differently, whether you're using Ardour, Reaper, Logic. Each one's going to have their buttons in different places, but many of them have similar buttons. Now, I think that's a bit loud, and that didn't come in the right time, so I'm going to change that round.
I'm
like
not
so.
They can see me, but they can't.
No. So one of the things that you can do, the way that it works in here is I can highlight notes so that I can change both of them at the same time. So I turned them down a little bit too much there, so I'm going to highlight everything and just bring up that ever so slightly. So we've got a motif here. We've got an idea, well, not a motif yet. We've got a musical idea where it's just coming back. So we're starting on that D, then go down to C and coming back up to D. It's very basic, and a lot of music that if you're emulating like this, is designed to be like this. It's designed to be simple so other people can sing or play music over the top of it. You wouldn't
have
want...
a menu.
Yes. Bear with me a second. Oh, I didn't know I was recording then. Of course I was. So let's go find that nonsense that I was just playing. So this is where you might want to just play it normally in that loop. And just play random notes. I kind of wish it was recording that. Can I repeat that? That's one of always the big questions. Let's give that a go. Oh, that's not starting at the beginning either. That's going to be fun. Here we go. I don't want that there. So you do get the sort of patterns in your head when you're playing, and obviously you can come up with lots and lots of different variations, and that's a good thing. When you're playing along and you end up generating a lot more variations, you can just add them and add them and add them later on. So you can have a very long piece that's very same or very samey, but it has that variation in it that keeps it fresh as you're going. And yes, Roderick, push random keys. Yeah, this is going to sound Celtic, Irish. It's going to sound medievalish. I'm not going to use a recorder sound. But one of the things that I have been playing with is some real instrumentation sounds. So where I've got this guitar, just playing those notes at the very beginning, let's see if we can just isolate this for a moment. So this sound here, I've picked up. I had a mandolin ages ago. I bought it at an auction because why not? And I've recently picked it up from my dad, so I'm going to incorporate that into some of the music I do. I don't need to know how to play the mandolin, but what I can do is play a couple of notes like that, record them. It's going to sound awesome, and I'll show you guys that over on the Discord when I get to that point. So what's happened here is during the quantize, when I did a trill, so a quick flick between two notes, you can see in the middle here, let's really focus on it. Whoop, this bit here, we've got two notes stacked on top of one another. We don't want that, so I'm going to grab those, make them shorter, and perhaps that. So one of the things that's happening here is as the music ends, it's just going ba ba at the beginning. I think we need this da 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 at this end. Let's just try that. So one of the things that computers are great at is dividing things, decimating them. What's octasing them? Chopping them into 8. There we go. That's a new word developed today. So this is a little ahead of itself, so I'm just going to adjust these notes. But I'm going to use the same A, C going up here later on. So we just need to find out where it is. It's just the last two blocks that need to go in. I'm being deliberately dumb with this.
Todd says, can I hire you to make music for my game?
You can send an email through.
It's not a no, but...
There we go. So having these little incidental notes really helps start the music again. And again, this is, as I say, this is like a real microcosm of what's going on here. This is only 4 bars repeated. But what you can then do, I often compose music like this, and after I'm happy with that, what I'll do, and what FL Studio allows me to do, again, different packages have different options, is I can take those ideas, create a new pattern, and just paste them in, essentially. I hate the fact it asks that every single time. I can go back to pattern 1. So I've copied this, so I can actually get rid of that information if I wanted to. And so pattern 2 is just the flute. I haven't named my stuff. Currently, pattern 1 is the guitar and that drum going on. So I'm going to cut the drum, and I'm going to create a new pattern. I'm going to name it this time. I haven't named any others, but I felt sorry for it. So there we go. We've now separated out those 3 bits of music that we've created, the individual parts, and now you can do something like arrange those parts. So I have drum, pattern 2, which is flute. I'm going to name these just for the sake of someone looking at this later and going, you didn't name your stuff, and you always tell us to name it.
I was just hoping you were going to spell flute, Floot.
No.
I would have.
And this is a guitar. So now that we've got these, I can select these individual parts that I've made and I can paste them in. So I can literally come in and now I can build up my piece. So I could just have the guitar if I wanted to. And then I might want to bring in the drum here. Let's have the drum again. And then I might want the flute, and then I might want the guitar, the drum, and the flute. And this is how you can build up a piece very quickly. And what we're going to be on here? Ooh, about 40 seconds of music. And we haven't designed the flute to loop unless the flute part is there. It's okay when it starts, but this part here has the da-da, and then nothing happens. So you might want to come in and go, okay, I need a, let's say, a flute
Or
end.
make an alternate pattern, so you've got a starting one and a looping one.
Exactly. So here I'm just going to be lazy. I'm going to come in and, okay, flute. I'm going to go to the original flute. I'm going to copy it. Again, I'm being very... dumb's the wrong word. I'm being very simplistic about this. I wanted that note. I know what that note is, but if you didn't, you could just come in and delete everything else and leave that note there. And then I could literally come in and paste that last bit in. And then it would just... I've doubled the drums there. There we go. And the way that this is now constructed means that when the piece ends, it loops perfectly, which is great if you want something in a menu or something along those lines, or even just like the tavern scene. This could be the music for your tavern scene. I don't know how long it is now. It's about 52 seconds in total.
Very nice. Speaking of how long things are, we've gone past the hour.
I'm glad you took it to that point. Hello, everybody. Wait a minute. Whoop.
Well
There we
done,
go.
Mikey.
So, yeah. Guitar. Yeah, don't fear the repo.
So yeah, people have been saying that sounds very Celtic or very Irish. A big part of that's going to be instrumentation, but a big part is also going to be the key you're playing in. So,
Yes, I was playing... Was I playing pentatonic? I might have been.
well, I mean, like, are you playing C? Are you playing F sharp?
So
minor?
yes, so a pentatonic scale is... A minor pentatonic scale is... No. I went too high for the instrument. Let's try that again.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, finding a scale and a key you like, it was going to give you a lot of the way. So it might be a chromatic scale, it might be a major scale,
and part of that comes. So part of the of copying is understanding how pieces are put together in certain genres, because that's ultimately how you're going to be able to get the sound and the quality that you want.
Yep. So well done, Mikey. So as we're gone past the hour, we should ask the traditional question. If anyone has any questions, concerns, thoughts, comments, jingles, or interpretive dances, now's the time. Are you doing Technotronic?
Me?
Yeah.
Maybe.
This beat is Technotronic.
Yo, ask your questions. It's the Canopy Massive.
I was a cybergoth. This is still him. Actually, that wasn't
I,
a million miles away from CyberGoth.
I was playing with sounds earlier, so that's the other thing that sounds can do while you guys are thinking about some questions. Is I was going through some sounds, as I just said, and I came across, and I held it and I listened to the progression of the sound because it's not the same all the time. It progresses. And I'm like, I just need some sort of like dope, dope, dope to go along with it, and I'm a happy man. And then I had a bit of a Prodigy. Well, I felt like a bit of a Prodigy vibe coming in, so that's when the when the drums just came in. It doesn't have enough distortion.
Yeah,
Hmm?
it's a
Not
little bit
enough
too early for the Prodigy. I mean, they went through.
You want me to wait an hour or so?
No, I meant the drum sound is a little bit too mid-90s. Like early Prodigy was very house, and then later it got much darker. But
I walk through
house is a really easy beat to make, by the way. It's just he's gonna make it. Meanwhile, I should get ready for some food.
Hold on. So we put the clap on, and we have go.
Give them the clap, Mikey. Everybody wants you to give them the clap. What did you do today, guys? Mikey gave us the clap.
Wait a minute. Boots and socks and yeah. Or boots and cats and boots and cats.
Yep.
So there's a thing on most smartphones where you can ask the phone to beatbox for you. Now, if you set all of the digital assistants off at once and get them to do it, you get quite the cacophony of out-of-time beatboxing.
I was going to say, why would you do that?
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, I tend not to use digital assistants anyway. They creep me out.
Is there a trick? No, there's never a trick. But there's one simple trick. Is there a trick to make some dark, terrific music? Do you mean terrifying music?
Do you mean terrifying or very good?
So, yes, you can take the ideas. So, what makes something terrifying? Large open space, loud noise, sudden changes.
So there's an interesting movement right now. Are you guys familiar with trap, which is this very fast-paced rap music? There's a goth trap movement right now. Ghost Main is a great example. And it's very low and dark and fast.
Yes.
And
so this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Munzer, with you've got a kind of a spec going on there, but as you can tell, it's going to be interpreted in different ways. So one of the best things to ask a question like that is to have examples along with. So, oh, I really like this. Can it be combined with this? And it's reference material, essentially. You know, I really like the sound that this orchestra has or this rock band has, but I don't want it to be rock. I want it to be this. How can we how can we meld those genres together? So yes, the best way of asking that question, come over to the Discord. I know you're there, Munzer, and actually post some ideas. Obviously, okay. I'm saying obviously I know what Irish music is. But I'm already jumping to a conclusion that it's twiddly-dee music, Irish pub, jig, reel, things like that.
I mean, I did hear some folk music when I was in Ireland many years ago, but I also heard a lot of metal.
Yes, so again, it being clear with the question and actually giving referenced examples would be a great way forward. So come over to the Discord, ask over there, and again, there might not be an easy answer to this. And what do you mean by dark? Because dark often means, so on the instrumentation side of things, it means something isn't bright. So you get a piano sound, it's a relatively muted, not a short sound, but muted as in it doesn't have the high frequencies. And it often has echo.
Like Hitchcock films, so suspenseful,
yeah,
frightening. I mean, Hitchcock was
Also,
Lots
there's
of strings. Lots
there's a
of.
certain sound to that as well.
Mm,
So yes,
I got catted.
yeah.
And on that note, I
Yes.
need to get myself some food, Michael.
That's a good one. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I've had lots of fun, as always, whenever it comes to anything musical.
Yeah.
We will see what next week brings.
We shall.
See you then.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mikey. And bye.
Adios. Sayonara.
Push it.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Push it.
Ciao.
Push it.
I will.
Push it.
Bye.